Hi everyone. We are going to talk about the pre-write folder in the Humanities unit. In this folder, there are a couple of different things you're going to have to work on for the week. So, it begins with this assignment on visual vocabulary. The first thing you have to do is watch this video, which goes over different techniques that are found in art. In the form instructions, it says you need to identify 2 techniques from the video that exist in your chosen artwork, and then you need to be specific about where these techniques occur in your painting, and you'll write 100 words or more identifying those 2 techniques and where they exist. One good way to go about this is to actually look at your painting while you're watching the video, so you can do a side-by-side comparison to the different techniques that exist. For instance, there are many different types of lines. It talks about vertical, horizontal, and curved lines. So as we look at examples from the video, that vertical lines, or the line, is one type of technique. So lines are one type of technique. And of the different types of lines, when I look at this painting, I can see that there are vertical lines in the columns in the background. So when I identify that there are vertical lines in my forum post, I want to be very specific about where the vertical lines exist. In this case, I see vertical lines that are the columns in the background of the painting. Another example, color is another great technique to talk about, especially if your painting does have quite a bit of color to note. Again, when you talk about color, you must be as specific as possible. I can't just say the painting contains reds, blues, yellows, whites, and browns. I have to be actually very specific about where they exist. For instance, there is a bright red cloak on the man who is in the center of the painting, or that the painting is framed by white on both sides. On the left, the shirt of the soldier, and then on the right, the dress of the woman who is covering her eyes. So don't just list the colors, but be very specific about where the colors exist. So again, you have to talk about 2 techniques and then note exactly where they occur within your painting or artwork. Once you've completed the visual vocabulary assignment, you want to go down to the Humanities outline assignment. Now, last week, we talked about research, and it was recommended during last week's work that you find something from the database that you can use for this week, because you have to have a database source in your outline submission. So when you go into the outline assignment, there is a document here. You're going to download this document and fill it out. At the top for the introduction, you're going to fill in the basic information that it asks for. It does also ask for a thesis statement. However, I suggest you do this last on your outline, because you need to know what's going to go in the body paragraphs before you actually create your thesis statement. When you go down to the first body paragraph, it asks for your 2 visual vocabulary terms. Now, if you've done your previous assignment correctly, the visual vocab assignment, you can actually take your existing assignment and just copy-paste it here into this section, because it's actually already done. And you're going to use that for your future essay. Now just keep in mind, the visual vocab assignment only had you do 2 terms and only had you do a minimum of 100 words. Keep in mind that when you write this into the full essay later, you're probably going to need more than 100 words. In fact, you're probably going to need at least 200 words in this section. So if you want to add another technique later on, you can. But for now, just for the outline, at least you've got something started. So you can take your visual vocab homework you already did, and you can place it here for body point, for the first body point, which is paragraph 2. For this part here, the next body point, this is where you have to talk about the meaning or significance of the painting, and you can do so by talking about any of the following. What does the painting symbolize or represent? Why is it considered an important piece of art? Does it send a message? Is it trying to teach the audience something? You can also talk about why it might be famous as a work of art in relation to its artistic methods. For instance, if it was a painting by Claude Monet, perhaps his technique was very special and very unique, and that technique is present in the painting that you're looking at. So you can also talk about the artist in some respects, as long as what you're talking about applies to the painting you are also presenting. It notes here you have to use your research source in this section. If you want, you can express your own opinion about what you think the painting symbolizes or what it means, but in addition to that, to meet the minimum requirements for the essay, you also have to have your research source here. And when you place your information here for your research source, you also have to document it using MLA documentation. All of that was covered in the previous videos I sent you last week. That has the works cited creation, how to do that, and if you're using the database like I showed you, it makes that citation for you, and then also how to do the in-text citations based on if your source had 1, 2, 3 or more, or no authors. You do the in-text citation for it. So you have to then put your research here that you're going to include, along with any other information you want to provide. Remember, there's only one required database source. If you want to use more than that, you can, but you do have to meet the minimum requirement to avoid getting deductions for the research portion of the essay. You'll then also add a conclusion. If you want, you can do this in bullet points, and this is an outline, so you can do all of these things in bullet points if you want to, that's fine. Or if you'd rather just write full paragraphs, you can do that too, as long as you are answering all the questions that are asked and filling out all the parts that are required. For the conclusion here, it's going to look for a summary that rephrases the big idea of the essay. You can either just put a few notes here, or you can just write out the paragraph if you prefer to do it that way. And then here, you have the works cited entries. So you need to go back to the previous homework in the Explore folder, the art piece selection. You created for me a works cited entry when you showed me what image you were going to use for this essay. You need to get this from your previous submission, fix any errors if there were any errors that were noted, and then place a copy of that image citation here, and you have to include your database research citation here because you're going to use that research in this paragraph 3. So paragraph 3 should have your research with documentation, the in-text citation, and then it should also have a matching reference down here at the bottom in the works cited section. Now, when it comes to doing the thesis statement, you need to sum up all the major parts of your essay into one single sentence, and that sentence will go at the end of your introduction. It should include the name of the artwork, the visual vocab you chose, and also the significance or meaning of the work. Here is an example thesis I've created. So in this one, I have Michelangelo's David, the very well-known sculpture. Perhaps you have seen images of it before. So I have the name of the artist and also the artwork. I have included the 2 visual vocabulary terms that I'm going to talk about that exist in the creation of that sculpture. And then at the end, the significance or the meaning behind it. This is what David represents or symbolizes. So I have all 3 parts in one sentence together. When I write out my introduction on my future essay, I'm going to have about 4 to 5 sentences total, and if I have 5 sentences, this will be sentence number 5 at the very end of my introduction. Once you have completed your outline, you're going to save a copy, and then you're going to submit it to the Dropbox in the pre-write folder. Now, if you're struggling to find sources and things like that for your research, don't forget you can reach out to me for help. You can also get in contact with our librarians. I think there's an online chat in the library. If you are really having some trouble, I really recommend, if you can, go to one of our libraries and sit down with a librarian and let them help you search. Sometimes it's good to just get a little one-on-one help at the library, especially if you're really struggling with the research part. Keep in mind, you have to have the database source to meet the requirements of the essay. You cannot substitute it for other things. Okay? So Feel free to email me at any time if you need a little extra assistance, or if you want me to check your outline before you submit it, if you're worried your documentation isn't done correctly, or if you want me to preview your thesis statement. So don't forget, you can always ask for help or ask for feedback. All right? And once you've completed those 2 assignments, you have completed everything in the pre-write folder.